This is I Have No Title and I Must Podcast, the show where we discuss any and all aspects of pop culture that is on our mind. We are your hosts, Tyler
and Chris.
And before we get started, for anyone that listened to our last episode and you didn't like or subscribe and your house got TP'd on Halloween, you got to ask yourself, was that coincidence or consequence? But anyway, continuing on, spooky season's over. I think enough time has passed that we're going to jump back into Ahsoka and do the wrap up on the last half of the first season. What's your overall thoughts?
First of all, I was visited by 4 ghosts last night. That's right, Marley counts as a ghost. I don't know why nobody ever realizes that. And I've promised to keep Halloween, the spirit of Halloween in my heart all year round. So spooky season is never over for me, and that means it goes on for all of you. Anyway,
yeah, spooky season remains for me too, but the YouTube algorithms and all that. So.
Right. Well, we can still have the basic desktop theme and talk about other things. But I mean, in Ahsoka, bunch of ghosts.
Yeah.
And the most powerful ghost of all, Anakin Skywalker returning. What did you ask overall? Overall, what were my feelings?
Yeah.
So the biggest critique that I've heard, and kind of agree with it, but I kind of don't see it as that big a deal, is that this is meant to be viewed as a movie, one big block, and that it's not like classic television. Now, classic television, you would have everything reset to the beginning at the end of every episode. Yeah. And you could watch literally, there are no storylines overarching over seasons. You could literally watch any episode after the first episode or before the final episode of any season out of order, more or less. Now, that's not exactly true, but more or less.
The occasional two-parter. But.
Yeah, the occasional two-parter or the replacement of a main character, which sometimes they kind of ignore in some shows. A big one in, the late 90s in Buffy, Cordelia leaves.
Yeah.
And they don't really talk about it immediately. Sometimes they'll mention it in passing later, and I was like, Joss Whedon should be above this. He should be able to, talk about a character leaving. That really bothered me, that in a show that's as intricate and well written as that, they ignored a glaring thing. So for Ahsoka and modern, the almost limited they're not limited miniseries, but they're basically miniseries, as shows used to go on 22 to 24 episodes a season. And now Doctor Who's generally 12. 12 is for a lot of the bigger shows. For some of the Marvel and Star Wars shows, and I'm not exactly sure how Game of Thrones or even some of the Boys, some of the Amazon ones, I'm not sure their lengths. I don't watch everything, but a lot of them have been 6 to 8 to 10. Can't remember what Andor was. It was a longer one. It was either 10 or 12.
Yeah,
I want to say 10.
In that ballpark.
And every episode it has a beginning, middle, and end, but sometimes they just kind of end. Sometimes they just pick an end point so that they can get a certain number of episodes, because they've written this as what's basically maybe a 5.5 hour movie, which I'm kind of okay with. But it breaks out of the mold. Maybe it could have been 7 episodes. There's 2 episodes in there that are a little shorter and could have been 1 episode. That was earlier on. That was one critique. I love Ahsoka. She's one of my favorite Star Wars characters. I never thought I'd be saying that early on in her introduction, but I don't think anybody in episode 4, in the first half of episode 4, was like, oh man, Luke's my favorite character. You see that part about how he was sad about his aunt and uncle dying and how he's whining all the time? No, everybody's like, Han Solo's my favorite character. Han Solo's the smooth, outlaw, cool guy. And then when they introduce Boba Fett, they're like, I don't know what their reasons are. I don't listen to people who say Boba Fett's their favorite character, but I know a lot of people do. Then, by the time Return of the Jedi comes around, everybody's turned around on Luke Skywalker and is like, whoa, this mother come in all smooth and choking people with his mind, wearing all black and a cape. He's finally got a cape and stuff. And he can take down the Empire with with a single word. He throws down his weapons. He plays the long game. And he's one of the most dynamic characters in cinematic history, as I've said. Ahsoka, maybe not as good, maybe not as well written and as well thought out as that. And I'm not saying worse by comparison. I'm just saying different, because I have really enjoyed watching the evolution of that character. And I think it was deliberate. And people were like, some people have critiqued it and said, this wasn't working, showing like Ahsoka early on.
No,
I think it was deliberate.
Yeah,
they make it.
Filoni's come out and said it was deliberate, because I think his reasoning was, you can't just add a new character and be like, yeah, everybody like this character because you're supposed to like this character.
You have to earn it.
And so they're like, we're going to make her go on this art so that people are like, yeah, she's annoying. And it's just like, oh, okay. True character development, people. That's what every other thing needs.
Yeah. Take somebody like that, put them through the ringer, and develop them into a stronger person / character. Sometimes have them make impossible decisions. Sometimes have them make the wrong decisions so that their morality can be questioned, and you can question yours. That sparks debate among friends, and that's why people can have fun with a silly sci-fi movie 30, 40, 50 years on, because it means nothing. None of this means anything. It's just for fun, but it can strike debate among friends and family, and you can have fun with that too.
Endless debates have been had between me and my friend of Star Wars. It's just like most conversations start with, what if this happened? Or do you think this was C-3PO?
I did hear a couple good ones, like in when Luke is dragging Darth Vader to an escape ship when the Death Star is crumbling or imploding or whatever, or they're under attack. There's like chaos in there, and like you can hear screams and gunfire and whatever, but Luke was the only rebel from the Alliance on board. Yeah. So does that mean that was like stormtroopers fighting each other to get off and killing each other? That's a pretty good one.
I mean, that's a good possibility, because when we look at like Andor and Rebels, everyone's backbiting and trying to get one over on somebody.
Because they went from using pre-programmed clones to just dudes off the street that are largely untrained that would punch a baby Yoda in the face. Those people got what was coming to them, and that guy didn't. God, he wasn't on there. That was later, but still. That sort of guy. So when we left off with Ahsoka, you reminded me that was episode 4 when she fell off the cliff.
Yeah, she's in the world between worlds. A
literal cliff
hanger.
Faller. And we see Anakin, and it didn't necessarily look good, that de-aging CGI, but in the episode itself looked great, I thought, which was really weird. I don't know if it was just how he was very still for that moment in the last one, but then going into the episode, I guess maybe in motion, he looked way better, and in the lighting of all the few battles that it takes us through her evolution. I love that episode so much. It was nonstop. It felt Lynchian. Like, it felt really surreal that, it's like her older mind in her younger body questioning all the things that they had to go through and why, and holding this resentment for Anakin. And even he's like, are we still on this? I've moved past it. Why can't you? And a lot of stuff got kind of left unsaid, but was there. It was there between them.
And I think it's great that Hayden Christensen's kind of getting the adoration from this role now. It's kind of a shame it took this long.
Yeah, if there's one thing that Star Wars fans love to do, it's to hate Star Wars. So he's gotten a lot, like Ahmet Best, playing Killer and Beck, saving Baby Yoda and being totally badass. People are giving him a lot of love, finally. And that guy got death threats for playing Jar Jar. It's like when you shoot the guy next to you who did something wrong to you, and it's like, he didn't write and direct himself. That was George, for better or for worse. If you hate Jar Jar Binks, that's George Lucas's idea, and he wanted to go harder with Jar Jar. Fortunately, he did listen to the fans, and he pulled back on it. If they had done their original plan and made him the bad guy or something, I don't know. But Hayden Christensen got a lot of flack early on and for a long time. I'm sure specifically from fans directly. I mean, I don't take part in this, and I don't look on forums and threads like that, or like I don't go through his fan mail, so I don't know what people said directly to him. But I'm sure it wasn't good considering what made it actually into some Kevin Smith films.
So what do you think about Thrawn's stormtroopers?
Oh, like the zombie troopers?
Yeah.
That was pretty cool, and I like the look of them too.
I don't know if you got this or if anyone else got this or if it was just me. That scene where it showed them all like standing in a line in front of Thrawn.
The first big reveal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It felt like a very Doctor Who vibe to me. And I'm trying to figure out why. I don't know. It just felt like, I don't know if it's the way it's shot, the way it looked. I don't know, but it just felt like one of the Dalek reveals or the Cyberman reveals.
I can see that because it's like a classic thing in a new way.
Yeah.
They're all like, I don't want to say bandaged up, but they have like the red fabric wrapped around them in strategic places, and it's not uniform. Nothing. They've always been, whatever you see, if you see a bunch of clone troopers, stormtroopers, whatever, if you see a big group of them, they're uniform. They're all the same. But there's subtle differences between all of them, and they have that, like, the gold inlay to keep them all together. I'm assuming they are all dead, except maybe the guy with the face.
Enoch.
Yeah. I don't love gold, so, like, a gold face, it's not like...
I think that does lend credit to my Merrick thoughts from the other episode about him being from the dead. That, what's her face? Morgan? Is that what her name is?
Elsbeth.
Yeah, Elsbeth.
Yeah, Elsbeth Morgan.
She used her magic to pretty much animate one of the Inquisitors.
And a lot of people still think the guy from The Force Unleashed. That's I think more so wishful thinking.
Yeah.
And the guy that played Sam Witwer.
Yeah.
I think was his voice, and I think it's just people wanting him. His name is always on like every Star Wars thing because like the guy, I can't think of his name. It's like right on the edge of my mind, but the guy who does Megatron.
Oh yeah.
From the original Transformers is like he'll do dogs or whatever, and it's like when you see his name on some list of actors and something, you're like, who was he in this? And you look up and it was like random dog number 3, and it's like times are tough, man. I hope things get better, but work's work, right? So Sam Witwer is like he's like the all-purpose Swiss Army man for like Star Wars.
It's slight deviation from Ahsoka, but I've seen an interview with Sam Witwer talking about like the different Star Wars projects that he's been on. And of course, himself, huge Star Wars nerd, was talking to some of the different people that he's worked with about how to go about like certain things. Like, should I do it this way? Should I do it that way? And he said that George Lucas said, these are campfire stories. Don't worry about it. So if it's like, oh, this ain't lining up with this canon and this canon ain't lining up with this canon, like, so who's right, who's wrong? Like, what's actual Star Wars canon? And it's like, well, it's like a campfire story. It's being retold by somebody else. So the minor details change story to story. So it's like, oh yeah, I seen it from this perspective, or I seen it from this perspective. And then you have that argument back and forth. It's like, oh, was their lightsaber green? Was it blue? Kind of thing. And that just kind of adds to the mystique of it.
I actually really like that. I wish it felt more like that all the way through. That like random things would change and it would feel more surreal so that you could say all of these things. And if there was some sort of narrator from more so in the present or something, or one of the droids or someone who was like retelling these stories that have been handed down. Maybe that's what's the anime show? What's it called? Visions?
Yeah.
I haven't seen all of it, but I've seen a good chunk of it. Maybe that's what that's more so supposed to feel like. Yeah. It's like these stories could be real and they could be from now or further back or in the future, but it's just somebody's spin on what actually happened.
Because I think like his original thing was, oh, so I have these force powers in this game that I'm voicing. So is that how the force works? Well, yeah, for this story, because from that perspective.
That does go a long way to explain Kathleen Kennedy. From a certain point of view.
Yeah.
There's also a story where he I can't remember, I think it was Dave Filoni forgot something. He forgot some bit of canon, and Sam Witwer did remember and corrected him. I mean, could you imagine having to be like, excuse me, to like one of the like the two top guys in your company?
Just every time I see like an interview with him, like I thought I broke down Star Wars.
This
guy.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, why did you play Darth Maul like this and his voice and your stuff? He's like, oh, because this would be his mindset. And it's just like, dude, that is spot on.
Yeah,
And-
did you not read that issue from the magazine where there was the comic strip that is canon, by the way? Like, he knows everything. Again, I'm going to reiterate this. What a beautiful man to not, like the guy from, I don't know if I'd said, so just to bring in a little bit more, because we're actually recording on Halloween. When you hear this, it will not be Halloween anymore, but today is Halloween. It's October 31st. So the band Ghost, the spookiest band of all, they all wear masks, and most of them are anonymous. Dave Grohl has actually donned a mask, but it's not completely confirmed when he played live with them. But at some point he did. He's never officially part of the band. He's just kind of worked with them. The lead singer is actually a really good looking guy. And he is public. You can see pictures of him. And I'm like, why do you not have a project where you show your face? Because from what I understand, girls like good looking guys and will give them money just to look at them. And that's not from my understanding. That's been my experience, not personally, but watching that. It's like, hey, have you heard the new Gavin Rossdale? Is it any good? I don't see how that matters. Have you seen him? Yeah, I've seen what he looks like. I mean, then you know what I'm saying, right? I guess I do. So I don't understand that. Why isn't Sam Witwer acting in live action? You just walk in somewhere and be like, here's my credentials. I'm good looking. And they would give him a job.
I was going to say probably the same reason Tobias Forge doesn't. It's like, I am that good. I can do whatever I want.
I guess so. Which he's actually said he's a better singer, which this is kind of a ballsy thing. He said he's a better singer than what the mask allows him to be, because it doesn't, I guess.
No, I can believe that. I've seen some of his live shows. It does look restricting.
Yeah. And he's having to do the accent
all
the time. So he's kind of pushing on that in between the songs. Anyway, back to Ahsoka. It's still Star Wars. We'll have to say, we might have to retitle the premise of this show as something that has to do with Star Wars that we either shoehorn in or focus on.
Well, the tagline is any and all aspects of pop culture on our mind. And we didn't say that it was necessarily in any particular order.
So I can see people, when you get used to a show, your types of shows that have, you come in for your beginning, middle, and end of each episode, and you don't necessarily get that. I'm watching Loki now, and I think it's better written episodically because it's got cliffhangers at the end of each episode. Tension builds until it reaches that. I can see what they were going for with this. It does just kind of end with a bunch of big cliffhangers for every character, because this was only the beginning. Like, they're getting ready to set up. I don't know if there's going to be an Ahsoka season 2. I know that Dave Filoni's doing his crossover movie event, which I think is going to be Mandalorian centric, so I wasn't looking forward to it. But if he brings in Luke and the Rebels team, which, yes, this was Rebels season 5, I can see people being mad about that. But the thing is, okay, so here's another thing people are mad at. This is Rebels season 5. I don't understand it. I didn't want to have to watch everything Star Wars. Guess what? You're into Star Wars, you're in it for life. You watch it or you don't. Is there extra supplementary material like comic books or things that are gonna be canon now, but when somebody else buys it later, when Fox or Unicom or UNICEF or Unicron buys it back in 100 years, they're gonna make all of this not canon and have their own new canon like Kathleen Kennedy's done now? Maybe they are. And are you gonna have to watch all that? I don't know. We might all be dead, or we might all be cyborgs, and you'll have unlimited storage capacity and the time to do whatever you want. So did you not want to watch a silly cartoon? I'm sorry, you're gonna be lost for a bit, or go back and watch it. It's actually better than you think.
Yeah.
I promise you that. When you get to the episode Jedi Knight, spelled Night, oh my god.
Not as good as Clone Wars, but yeah, still pretty good.
It's got more of a cohesive story though, because you stay with a core group, and that core group grows a bit, grows and diminishes. Whereas Clone Wars, while I loved it,
more of a spotlight.
Yeah, it's almost an anthology show. I mean, you have episodes where any Jedi is a cameo, and that it's like clone centric, and there's certain clones you get to know that have their own storylines storylines, and it's pretty big. Having said that, too, I hate it when a show gets canceled. They did bring it back to finish the story, but that was kind of a prequel for Ahsoka. It was kind of her denouement.
Well, if that's the case, it's kind of brought back twice because they were working on, was it got 7 seasons?
I think that's what it was.
It was canceled after season 5, but where it takes so long to go through, they were already working on 6.
Mm-hmm.
Netflix picked it up for them to finish it out. So if you watch season 6, you can actually tell what was done when, because voice actors change, like certain things change. Because like Palpatine goes from who his original voice actor was to Tim Curry, and it is noticeable.
And hey, in Rebels, the Emperor, played by Ian McDiarmid.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's like a selling point, but I mean, there's a lot of it that feels pretty authentic when I was like, this voice actor is like nailing this. And because so much so that I looked it up and I was like, oh, it's because it was him. How'd they get him to do that? Why didn't they just do that the whole time? Anyway, there was the little turtle men. Some people said crab, and I was like, are they crabs? Which I could kind of see both because they're wearing clothes underneath the things, the shell things. So I guess they're detachable like crabs would be. And their eyes are like crabs. But I don't really like crabs. I like turtles more. So I'm more... and they look like turtles walking around. They look like, middle-aged.
I could see hermit crabs. They move place to place to get their home.
It is obviously more so based on that. But
so what about Ezra's Force Kung Fu?
So have you seen all of Rebels?
Yeah.
Going back to Rebels, how do you feel about Ezra? Now, talking about the Ahsoka show, leave him in live action out for a second. What were your feelings about Ezra going into this?
I was kind of neutral about it. Honestly, Ezra was just kind of a neutral character for me.
Yeah, I didn't love him.
I didn't hate him. I didn't be like, he needs to go. But he was not my favorite.
Yeah, it just seemed like a new spin, a funnier character and like a goofier character than we've had as like a regular person, like other than say Jar Jar. And I hate to compare Ezra to Jar Jar because it's not really, but it's, there's something to that. Because
I think it's great because it, again, shows character growth. He was this immature kid that's wanting to do this. And now you can kind of see he's mellowed out. He's learned. He's
growth and also a wider variety of types of characters used. Not everybody has to be heart attack serious. I'm glad I loved Andor. I loved Andor as a character. I loved it as a show. I loved a lot of his mom, smaller characters like Kino, the guy that, help me out, the guy that does all the motion capture, Andy Serkis.
Yeah, I was going to say you're using that power to blank my mind out.
Block it. I was going to say Caesar and Gollum, but it was in the Prestige live action. Andy Serkis, there were so many characters that worked so well that the direction, the writing, the music, the acting, everything in that was perfect, but it was so serious. A true drama, because there's very little humor, if any. I don't think there was much of any. It was just, bleak. So to have something like that in the same universe is, not everybody would be like that. Even in times of strife, there's always that guy who finds a way to laugh in the face of darkness.
I think that's why Thrawn is such a great character and
foil to Ezra.
Because he is a different kind of villain that we've seen in Star Wars. He's cold, calculating.
Yeah. He has his own goals, but he almost feels honorable in a way and kind of not neutral.
For the D&D fans out there, that would be lawful evil.
Yeah, he's indifferent to certain things, but when it comes to his goals, he'll do almost anything. Yeah. But he does have a set of rules that he plays by.
And we got another Mickelson in there.
Yeah. Yes, and he was the voice. That was so weird too. Just that, seeing him on screen, and it's the same voice that I've seen all through Rebels, and then he's there, and it's the exact same voice. I don't know that we've ever had. Has this ever happened where somebody played something so long in animation and then played that character? I know there was also the guy who played the governor or something. He reprised his role in live action previously to this, but Thrawn was in there a lot. And for it to be kind of a legacy character, I know they've taken him from non-canon things or things that are not canon now and brought him into the new canon. But anyway, back to Ezra. I do love Thrawn, but I actually really like him in live action. I was not looking forward to this. I think that Beard's got to go, but it's like they got him just right. Like he's a little bit more mature, but he still has that whimsy about him that was like, or you could take us prisoner. How about that? It didn't feel like too much. Like in the animation, they always go too much, whether it's whatever it is, even in the Clone Wars, it was like some of the stuff that happens, like they would never do that in live action. And if they did, it would be wrong. It wouldn't work. And you have more freedom in animation. I think they got Ezra just right. The guy playing him hit all the beats that it's like, this is still the same guy, but he's grown up a little bit and it shows. But it's not so much so that he's a different character. Yeah. It's just a little bit of growth, and there will probably be more later on.
After seeing like him fight without his lightsaber, kind of makes you like wonder why haven't we seen like more like hand-to-hand stuff from the Force? It's like, yeah, we get a Force push or whatever, but still usually lightsaber.
Yeah, so hard confliction about that. Yeah. As you know, I'm not going to say it one more time. I guess every episode there might be somebody for the first time. I love a sword fight. I love swords. And I think like lightsabers are the first time that made me think like that was really cool with seeing that at such a young age. I was like, sword fights are awesome. Where can I get more of this? Well, at the time, not in lightsaber form, but you can get a lot of movies with sword fights and TV shows, as it would turn out. But that was actually a really good, you're not going to get what you want just yet. He's not going to take his lightsaber. I think that was Filoni doing his take on what they had Luke do in episode 7. Where he took the lightsaber and threw it over his shoulder, and people hated that, and I hated that. So he was like, no, I give it to you, it's yours. What do you do? No, I give it to you. Like, I'm good, I'm actually good. Like, yeah, I've always wanted to see more fighting with the Force, and I felt like it worked. Plus it forces you to wait to see him use his lightsaber, because she's like, yeah, I'm not actually that good with this. And then he builds a new one right then and there on the spot in front of Hu Yang and has like a snarky conversation with him a little later, which I thought was really good. And then they get to bring up Kanan Jarrus. I also didn't like these characters. I didn't just go in loving them on the episode 1 or whatever. You go through some storylines with them and either grow to like them or hate them or have some conflicted feelings about them. And I think every great character should make you feel conflicted. Somebody can't just be like Captain Hammer,
That's one thing that always aggravated me about older cartoons. It's like, oh, these are the good guys and these are the bad guys. Well, why? Well, because we're bad. Even the bad guys are like, yes, we're bad. It's like, people don't say that in real life. It's like the bad guys usually think they are right and don't see themselves as the bad guy.
I think you just summed up something that we're not going to talk about right now.
But where was I going?
Ezra.
Right.
And that actually sums up Coulson's Thrawn.
Yeah.
Which I kind of thought, does he really even have a political alliance or a political allegiance to something, or does he have his own personal goals?
It looks like he has an allegiance to his own ideology, and then he's on whatever side can get him that.
Yeah, that seems accurate.
Because it also seems to be the case with Ray Stevenson's character, whose name I also can't remember because of...
Balin Skull.
Yes,
I just watched the last episode earlier today.
Chris's mind power.
But man, that was awesome too. And the mirroring, introducing them, first two characters we get introduced to, mirroring the introduction of Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan in episode 1, coming in on a ship in their hoods. Except it had a little bit of a deviation there.
Yeah.
When they just kind of, he lets his apprentice go ham on everybody in there.
So where do you think his storyline's going? We see the statue of the father there.
Yes. He's clearly wanting to go to the world between worlds, or... I thought his goal would be to go, before the show, or like as it began, I thought he's going to be the one to go into the world between worlds. I went on record saying I think Ezra's going to have been dead for a while, and Ahsoka's going to have to return the favor by saving him in the world between worlds. And Filoni said that it's not exactly time travel, it's just things that happen or whatever, which it's
again, there's that Doctor Who vibe. It's not linear, it's a big ball of wibbly wobbly timey-wimey stuff.
Yeah, like when he explains certain things can be changed and certain things can't, and I know the difference because I'm a Time Lord or whatever. And when he goes into a place, he's like, this has to be. Everything has their thing that's like, this is a fixed point in time, as the Doctor would call it. So, and then Ahsoka realized, like, if he saved Kanan, they would all die. And that would undo that would be a paradox. So he could save her because they had not met after that. So it doesn't cross a timeline or do a thing. It was only okay because it was okay. But there was possibly 2 timelines where she lived and she didn't. I don't know. I'm sure Dave Filoni would say no, but clearly, like, what? So that always just happens and there's no multiverse, whatever. I guess we're stuck with Luke's death the way it happens in that horrible, the worst timeline. So Star Wars is officially canon, like the worst timeline, the worst possible version of Star Wars, at least by the end. Except in those Legends books where Grand Master Luke Skywalker, totally badass. Anyway, what were we talking about again? Ahsoka? Oh, Balin's Skull. Yeah. And like the can't say gray Jedi is that's not a thing. Maybe a thing. Fans like it because it sounds cool, but technically, if you hear somebody's argument for why it can't exist or isn't real, they make a good point. So what they are, I don't know. He calls Jedi trained in the wild, like away from the temple, like the new Jedi, like Boca Jedi or Boken Jedi, which I think is like a term for a practice sword. And I can't remember which it is. Boken maybe. I think Boca is like photography term, which, you know, Luke and Ahsoka, which Ahsoka was trained at the temple, but like Ezra, super powerful, you know, I guess. He is shown to be that way in the cartoons, but then again, it's a cartoon where they go hard on stuff. There's a theory that his apprentice is maybe his daughter. It could be. It's hard to say exactly. She looks young, but it's hard to say exactly how old or young she is. She's clearly more vicious than he is. He seems to definitely be conflicted. Now, where he's going and what is he looking to undo Order 66? That seems to be the case, or could it be even something bigger and might he achieve it? Do you think they're going to recast him?
As far as his journey, it does seem that he was okay with being left on that planet. So
yeah,
whatever
almost
his
like
goal,
that was his plan.
Yes, whatever his goals were, it was just to get there, not anything else. But as far as recasting, I don't know. I've seen a lot of people saying that maybe Liv Schreiber to come in.
The resemblance when they just put the beard on him, white beard, it's uncanny. I don't know if he's as big as him, but just put the suit on.
I mean, he probably close. I mean, he did a pretty good Sabretooth, even though that movie wasn't pretty good.
I mean, he played Anne Frank's dad in the recent A Small Light miniseries or series, and I couldn't believe it. I was seeing his name, I'm looking at his face, and I was like, that's not him. Amazing job. But yeah, just put him in the suit, just pat it out. You know, not everybody has to be. If he's not going to get naked in it. I don't see, I think Hugh Jackman's getting tired of, like, spending most of his life, like, in a gym. And then, you know, there were all these promotional photos of Kumail Nanjiani for the Eternals, like, and shirtless, and he doesn't appear shirtless in the movie. So what was the point of getting that jacked and most likely doing substance like performance enhancing chemicals? Allegedly. I'm not saying he definitely did that, but allegedly. I mean, the burden on proof is on him to tell me he didn't do that. Like, you told me you didn't do that. Anyway, Liev Schreiber could easily do this, and it would be great. Just like if they brought in Sebastian Stan. Sebastian Stan would be a great stand-in for Luke Skywalker. Again, the resemblance is uncanny, and if they had to do a little bit of, I don't know what they would do, if it would be prosthetics or digital, or just let him age.
Column A, column B.
And I mean, what they would probably do to hide any kind of discrepancy is facial hair. Which I don't necessarily like for that. But I've seen a few fan castings for Balin, and Liev seems to be the obvious choice. It looks dead on. And he's a great actor, so I know he could do it.
Yeah, I can't think of a better replacement if that's the route they're going.
Yeah.
I just hope they don't go a digital route.
There's no way they would do. I mean, I say that, and they did Tarkin, which was horrifying. Not the moral implications, just to look at it. Like, you're looking at the eyes. Like, didn't they use his eyes, or the eyes were the real person that was playing it?
I think the technology is still in its infancy, so there's still that uncanny valley.
Yeah, and like when Leia turned around.
Yeah.
I just wish they could have easily just used
clip from the original.
Yeah, they use that, or just never have her turn around.
Yeah.
We know who it is.
Just have it in there.
Yeah, just have like a unused recording of her saying some random thing that makes sense, or some clip from one of the movies or something. She was around for like 80 years. I'm sure you have something that could have worked, and it would have been her voice, and then the actress just never turns around. It would have been fine for 5 seconds of horror to be looking at that. And it looks weird because it doesn't look quite right. They don't have that yet. So yeah, to say like they'll never do this, I don't think they would. And I think it might be too expensive to do like a full character like that for what would basically
like more
be
than a
TV.
few scenes.
Yeah, and he's clearly got a lot to do. And my big hope is that they don't abandon the storyline, because that's possible too, that they just leave it and say, what a mystery that was going to.
We'll throw it over to the comic books or something to pick up.
They could, or a book or something. When I heard that he died, I was like, oh man, I wonder if the character dies by the end of it, or what they're going to do for that. Clearly, he has some respect for the Jedi. As he said, it would be a pity to, it would be a shame to have to kill Ahsoka, because there's so few Jedi left. There's still something in him that misses it, or feels, like he feels betrayed by the hubris of the Jedi, and that they allowed to happen what happened. He has some feelings about Anakin, rightfully so, but his apprentice still has like a Jedi Padawan braid. So there's certain aspects of the tradition that are still there. So there's a lot of conflict in him, and I hope we get to see some redemption there, because there wasn't glee in his having to fight Ahsoka. There was just, again, this is a means to an end. You're not going to get in my way. And maybe it was because he intended to create a different timeline where Order 66 did not happen and none of this had to happen. I don't know. That's just a theory.
At this point, gets a redemption, doesn't get a redemption, I'll be okay. I just want more explanation. I want to see where this is going.
Yeah, and why he didn't want his apprentice with him. He put her on a different path and went on his own. So maybe he doesn't plan on coming back. It could be something extremely altruistic that he has had to deviate from his original. That sentence sort of got away from me there. I want to know who his master was. Yes. Yeah. I think that's going to be important. Yeah. To understand his timeline.
Let's see, how many months away are we from May? Let's go to Star Wars month.
Halfway there. Is it August, November, December, January, February, March, April? So 6 months.
All right, so we got 6 months to look at every Jedi during that time period and slightly before to figure out who his master is, so we can discuss it for Star Wars month.
You think it could be Dooku?
Possibly.
So Dooku was most likely Yoda's last apprentice, but he would have had like hundreds, if not.
Well, his last one-on-one apprentice, because Yoda does
because
train
technically,
the younglings.
they as they say in it, I think in the Clone Wars, we've all been apprenticed to Yoda, in that he took on a grander role, which I guess is the Grand Master of the council. Kind of has he goes to the kindergarten and teaches all the younglings a little bit before they go on to having a personal one-on-one master. So I think it could have been Dooku, maybe even before Qui-Gon. I don't know, but then again, no,
I don't know that the ages line up there. I would think it'd have to be someone still in the Order during the Clone Wars.
Yeah,
because he was clearly not following Dooku's lead at the time.
It'd be good to get a flashback to see what we've gotten. So many. You know what? I'm going to pitch this to Order 66 movie. I don't think a full TV show, or maybe even like a one-off, like hour-long special or hour and a half, or so, like a short film, but just vignettes of a lot of like piecing together. We keep getting flashbacks from like Mandalorian and a few other things. Actually, no, I think just Mandalorian.
Yeah.
It's been mostly that, where we get little bits and pieces. And the Bad Batch.
Yeah.
We had a little bit more there. And I think technically, if that Fallen Order game is canon, and I think they're going to do something with that the red-haired guy in live action, and they want to keep that game canon, there was a bit in that was from how his master died. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm interested to see that. Now, we have to move on to the most controversial thing in the whole show, and we have to talk about it.
Which is?
It's the elephant in the room. Sabine. Jedi, not a Jedi, Force. Well, now we know. Anybody who's listening to this, if they got more than 5 minutes in, they watched all of Ahsoka and have most likely watched all of Star Wars, or are just friends with us that are like, I'm giving you guys a pity listen. You're in the background. I'm listening for keywords so that I can yell at you later. Although I did get positive reactions from our last couple of episodes. So all I can say to sum this up is Darth Maul's brother, all of a sudden, like, super powerful just from having been slightly enchanted. But like Sabine, who works years on trying to unleash her Force sensitivity, when she finally does, people hate that. Again.
I don't know. I think that is just validation from the very beginning of Star Wars. It says the Force is in all living things. You just have to attune to it.
I think the clues were there in Rebels too, for this specific character, which was Kanan talking to Hera saying she's blocked. That's it. Like, she's so Mandalorian, and there's a 1,000-year history of Mandalorians not being Force sensitive. It's because of them being the Klingons, the Star Wars universe. They're so military minded and aggressive that they block out all aspects of the Force, or at least being Force sensitive to that degree.
Because even the one and only Mandalorian Jedi, the reason they ousted him is because he was still more dedicated to Mandalore than he was the teachings of the Force.
Yeah. So it makes sense to me, like, when you frame it that way and look at it like that, which all of it's right there. Like, they've been building on this storyline, like the Mandalorian storyline, for so long, and they added in all these context clues. There's no Force sensitive Mandalorians. Why is that? She's so Mandalorian, and that's clearly there, and she's blocked. It was there because I was like, even when I was watching Rebels originally, I was like, are they just gonna have her all of a sudden be Force sensitive? Well, I mean, look at Luke. Maybe there are context clues that say he was Force sensitive prior to that. Like, I think I can't remember if it was Biggs or who it was that was like, we can't hit that. It's a super small little hole there. How are we ever supposed to do that? And Luke was like, what? I used to hit like rats from 13 miles away. Like, I would just like skip a stone and be like a dead rat, because he's Force sensitive already. Just like how Anakin could erase a pod racer is because he could see things before they happened.
I say it's like any skill. Some people are like, anybody can learn them, but some people gravitate to them more easily
Because of their M count.
No.
I mean, it's just like, I used to play basketball every day after school. There's this really tall guy, and he took basketball seriously. He really loved basketball. And he had a hoop in his front yard. And it was legit. Like, they had a little cement landing. And they'd put the hoop in there, and it was like regulation size and everything. He knew that area so well, and the lay of the land. He could make a shot from anywhere on that little court. And he taught me to. And we'd just sit there and shoot the whole time. We'd play horse or just one-on-one. And I got really good. Now, for anybody who's listening who doesn't know me personally, I'm really short. I'm like 5'3". This guy was probably like 6 foot. Maybe even a little over, maybe right at about that. So it's weird when I think about that, because I'm like, I actually used to be, but then again, I was playing like one-on-one or, and we were just messing around. If I was playing on a team of people who were all taller than me against a team of people who were all taller than me, I might be a good backup player, but I wouldn't be the star player. If I'm playing against Michael Jordan, I think things might go a little differently. So, yeah, if Sabine is going up against somebody else and you're blocked mentally, you're not going to be able to do it. It's like telling yourself, I can't do something. You're going to find a way to not be able to do it until you accept that you can. Now, your physical limitations also have something to do with that. So her M count might not be high, and that's fine, which I don't know why that never came up. Like, they should, because that seems like a glaring error that because they have the technology to test for that. They should be able to say.
That was also lost with the Jedi.
Yeah, maybe. Or maybe it's something that, like, Hu Yang didn't want to be like, yeah, like, so you straight up suck, and your M count's really low, so good luck with that. It was almost like he was pushing them. I'm okay with it. As long as Filoni's giving me sword fights, because we've been getting Mandalorian stuff. I don't like the Mandalorian stuff. I think the Mandalorian, the show, is good. It's well written. I like that. I like good written things. But I like we're talking about Star Wars Jedi stuff. That's the one thing it's got going for it that other things don't. What do you get in Game of Thrones? What do you get that you don't get in Star Wars? You get sex, I imagine. That's what I keep hearing about. And dragons, which they had the beast, something, I can't remember.
The Mythosaur.
There was that, yeah. There was something in Clone Wars. It was like, kept getting bigger or something. I can't think of what it was called.
Was that the one that they were trying to kill?
Yeah.
The armor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's other shows, or like, brands. There's another word, I can't think of it. Franchises, yes, that's it. That have things you can't get in Star Wars. Star Wars is the one thing you can't get anywhere else. Like people who can use telekinesis and a laser sword at the same time. And then they're going to be like, but we've had enough of that. We want to explore other things. What the No, stay on the thing that is the coolest thing you have. What has Filoni done? Just that. Thank you, Dave Filoni. I appreciate and love you. If I see you, I will give you a kiss.
And I think he will give you a restraining order.
He probably will. And I'm giving him fair warning now. So, what was I talking about? They need to do more of that. Not necessarily more, but they just need to maintain it.
Yeah.
And I don't mind there being one more character. And it kind of would be reminiscent of Luke. Of course, he has since given up his guns, but in Return of the Jedi, he was still in between there. He still carried a gun and his sword. So that's Sabine. She's still switching back and forth. That's kind of cool. That's something new. Even when she wasn't good at it or didn't exactly have the Force, but now she can maybe cultivate it. And it might be an awakening, like in X-Men, maybe like 10 years ago, when they had their No More Mutants event, and then there were no more mutants being born for a long time, and then all of a sudden one day something re-sparked them. Yeah. So this might mean a lot more Force-sensitive people, maybe for Mandalore, if not universe-wide. I think they're out there in the universe just already. That didn't end.
Well, if you want to go into the controversial realms, at the end of
7?
Yeah, one of the new trilogies.
The one with the little boy with the broom?
The broom, yeah. So, yeah, they're out there.
Another thing from the internet, I thought this was interesting. It has nothing to do with Ahsoka, but it does have to do with Anakin and Padme. This is something that bothered me for a long time. What's Anakin's droid? What's the droid he always has with him? Like in the Clone Wars?
R2?
R2-D2.
Yeah.
But it's not his droid. And then he never has C-3PO with him. Like, hardly ever. He's there sometimes, but it's not like they travel together. They don't do stuff together. And he doesn't act like he belongs to him, even though he built him. That's his robot. But he's always with Padme. Well, they can't wear rings, having been married. This is something I saw on Instagram just last night. They didn't exchange rings. They exchanged droids. And so that's why R2-D2 goes with Anakin and is with him until the end. And C-3PO is always with Padme and is with Padme until the end. And in the end, Anakin's on Mustafar. He tells R2, stay in the ship, and he doesn't take it with him. And it was him symbolically taking off his ring because he knew what was most likely going to happen. Now, I don't necessarily like that. It could have just been, because it's too dangerous. He doesn't want him to see what's about to happen. But then Luke kind of inherits R2-D2, and Leia inherits C-3PO, so they symbolically take their parents' wedding rings with them, like some kids would do after their passing or whatever. Anyway, I kind of like that. I kind of like that theory, all except for Anakin taking off his ring. I don't necessarily like that metaphor mixed in with this, but I do like the initial metaphor of them exchanging droids, because it always bothered me that, like, in the Clone Wars and beyond, he's always got R2-D2 with him, and that didn't really make sense to me because it was just some Naboo.
He was always more protective of his astromech than everybody else was of theirs.
That's true too. He even went on a personal mission just to get that droid back, and then was like, it's because he has, like, all this stuff, information and stuff inside of him. And they're like, Anakin, this is sounding like personal attachment. And he's like, it's not. I don't care about any of you people. Or that droid, really. But, it's got those plans in it, so I got to get him back. So I'm going to, like, risk a whole fleet of clones to get that thing back. Anyway, so Ahsoka.
My only other thought for Ahsoka is, for the most part, I really like the show. So my one drawback to the show is a conditional one, because it may not be later, but it may be now, because they're clearly leading into some kind of movie this kickstarted it. If this show was only to kickstart that movie, I'm going to be disappointed with how it ended. But if they have another season, even if that season picks up after the movie and not where it left off, I'll be fine with it. But I will feel let down if this was only to kick off that movie.
I still feel like there might be a second season. I think that it might. I don't know. I do want to see something more cinematic.
Yeah.
I want to see something with more money put into
it. Don't get me wrong, I do too. But as far as this show, if that's the only thing it was, I will feel let down, because I feel there's so much more left to be explained than one movie can do.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, and if that crossover movie has to do with, and I keep mentioning Luke because I want everybody, I think there was a lot of people that wanted him to at least have a cameo in this, and he didn't, which how would he have gotten over there? But if you have the Mandalorian stuff, and there's already so many main characters in that, then there's like supplementary characters we didn't even get around to talking about, like that one ranger, that Carson something.
Yeah.
He's got to be in there. He's got to have like a moment, because he's just been awesome, like going from show to show, just being everywhere. And not to mention Grogu, Din, the Armorer, what's the woman who rules Mandalore?
Bo-Katan.
Bo-Katan. There's like all kinds of main characters over just in the Mandalorian that are like well loved. And if they bring Boba Fett in, and whoever like his assassin right hand woman is Fennec Shand, yeah. And who knows what other characters might have cameos from like all of Star Wars that would still be around in that era. Whether it be from the Legacy original trilogy, which is what most people would want to see if they had a stand. We haven't talked about Leia, but there could be a stand-in for Leia. Yeah.
I think Chewbacca would be
that's an easy one. They should do, even if it's from an over-the-shoulder shot. Like the Ghost was present in Episode 9. I kept saying Episode 7 when I meant Episode 8.
We could possibly get a Lando.
I think so. I think Childish Gambino might be up for that. Yeah. They're talking about doing his own show, which I think is probably a bad idea, even though I love Childish Gambino, and I do know his real name. And I loved Atlanta. I loved what him and his brother did with Atlanta, but I think Lando's show might be pushing it. Yeah. I think him in something would be great as Lando. Put him in everything as Lando. I think he did a great job, but I don't know that Lando show is the right way to go. Unless if it's well written, surprise me.
Yeah.
I didn't think I'd like The Mandalorian because I don't like Mandalorian stories, but
I'd watch it. I don't know that I'd be excited.
Yeah, I was excited for Ahsoka, and I'm not saying all of it totally paid off, but again, we get to see the concept of character development, not just something and we actually get to see her evolve as a character even later in life. Like, she never stops growing, and I think that's a good message, Dave. I mean, this might be kind of sappy or whatever, but just think about that. Never stop. Anakin says, "You look old," but he hasn't stopped teaching her, and she didn't stop growing, and she still found a way to reclaim some of her youth and youthful vigor and cheerful attitude, and did not stop growing and wants to continue on. I think we should all do that. Never stop stopping and keep going.
Yeah, I try to do that. I try to learn something new every day. It's not always useful.
Well,
but I mean,
you've learned all this, the podcasting stuff. Let's take a minute, and I liked Ahsoka. I'll give Ahsoka an A for Ahsoka. Toward the end of the year, we're looking to maybe take a week or two off, but maybe have something to put on in that time. Obviously, we talked early in the year about doing like ending the year with Doctor Who because it's his 60th anniversary, and we have some special things planned for the Christmas season. It's absolutely not what you'd think, but I like your idea. It's already not something I would have necessarily pitched because I wouldn't have thought you'd go for it, but I would easily have wanted to do that, what you have planned. So going into the year, we already had some big plans. So please share the show, and if you can possibly force somebody to give us money, do that.
Yeah, we do have a Patreon, but at this point in the show, I think sharing it and getting it out there is more important.
Yeah.
Then we can grow, expand the Patreon, and actually offer something good for people.
Like we've talked about doing commentaries. We have not done them. You guys got to flash that moolah. And always just like the video, hit subscribe. You don't even have to watch every single episode. Just turn it on and hit mute. Or if you don't want to do that, just hit subscribe. Anyway, tell other people to subscribe. Just help us get our numbers up and get our algorithm out there to the right people, because YouTube is unforgiving and you have to gameplay on this one.
If we get enough likes and views, we will watch Mac and Me.
Yeah. I don't want to set a number on that just yet because it might happen faster than I want it to, but we'll definitely do that. And other things. If anybody has any ideas for things that we should do a commentary for, let us know. If there's something we've missed, let us know in the comments section. We have an Instagram, and do we have a Facebook?
Yeah.
We have personal things too that you can also follow.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think that's a good place to wrap up. If you made it with us this far, thank you. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, comment, follow our social medias, and until next time, see you.